Welcome to the ALTIS Podcast. I am your host, Stu McMillan. In this series of conversations, I am sitting down with contributors to the upcoming ALTIS Speed Summit presented by 3x4 Genetics and taking place in Chicago from June 6th through the 8th. This event will bring together some leading minds in coaching, sports science, and performance innovation for a series of conversations and sessions aimed at challenging and expanding how we think, train, and coach. A sincere thank you to our sponsors, 3x4 Genetics, Stat Sports, 1080 Sprint, Team Builder, and Output Sports for supporting this initiative. For more details and to secure your ticket, please visit altis.world. Today's guest is Dr. Martin O'Reilly. Interesting for me. I really enjoy having the conversations with people I've never met before. Met Martin 5 minutes before I pressed record today. So yeah, really cool opportunity to get to know new and smart people. Martin is the co-founder and CEO of Output Sports. He holds a PhD in machine learning for signal processing. I don't know what signal processing is. I should have asked him that. I didn't. I should have. You probably do. I'm old. You're probably young. He co-founded Output Sports out of research conducted at University College Dublin, and his work bridges the gap between scientific research and applied technology, bringing streamlined, field-ready performance tracking tools to athletes and coaches across elite and developmental sport contexts. I began by asking Martin, what does he do and why does he do it?
First of all, thanks a million for having me on, and love the first question. So what I do is work on building a company and a technology where we aim to make elite level sports science simple and scalable. So pragmatically, day to day, that means working on a host of different problems, be it connecting with the customer, building R&D strategies, marketing, sales, finance, everything that comes with trying to grow a business. And then why do I do it? I absolutely love sport, have played it throughout my whole life, and I particularly like the fulfillment that comes from setting and reaching a goal and kind of self-development. So building a technology that plays a part in doing that for thousands of athletes and coaches gives me an incredible amount of fulfillment selfishly, but hopefully also gives them progression and fulfillment as well. So that's really a massive motivating factor for me. And then that's maybe a little bit philosophical, but then just kind of selfishly, I love problem solving. My dad's a physicist. I kind of love maths and physics growing up, but then I played about 15 different sports. So this is just a way to pursue my passions and really kind of push the boundaries of how with my passions and expertise I can make an impact in the world of sport. So that's kind of a little bit about me and why I do Output Sports.
How old is Output Sports?
So in terms of commercially, we launched our first product just over 5 years ago at the start of COVID. From a research perspective, the fundamental research that led to Output Sports started in 2013 with me and my co-founder starting our PhDs. And really a lot of that progressed to Output. So in terms of our focus and our passion in the space, that really lasts long over a decade now. And then commercially, we went to market at the start of COVID, really took that time to focus on how can we fit for the market because it was effectively closed. Launched a second product at the end of 2022, and that's where the focus has really split between technology and R&D, and then the commercial growth now as well. So yeah, it's a young in terms of commercially, but a long journey today.
Yeah, mate. I mean, you're a pretty you look like a pretty young guy anyway. You're definitely a lot younger than I am. So that seems like it's pretty. You got interested in doing this specifically in the tech end of things pretty early in your career, like as early as you starting your PhD. Like, what was the genesis of, what? I don't want to be a coach. I don't want to be an S&C. I don't want to be a traditional sports scientist working in the lab or whatever. I want to do something a little bit different. Like, what was it that you were interested in it that led you down that road?
Yeah, no, great question. So, in Ireland, when you're 18, 17-year-old, you have to choose like what you want to apply for as your college course. And I was like literally like splitting like what you might call it maths and physics, engineering background things, number one, and then number two was sports science, number three was another engineering one. So I was literally torn and like debating with my parents and like not knowing what to do. And then just really luckily like found a course that was called sports and exercise engineering. And it just meant that I didn't have to at that age make the split between do I want to go down more like a scientist or practitioner route or like really lean into engineering and kind of my other area of passion. So that's kind of how it started. I just chose to do a sports engineering course. And then luckily enough, in my third year, you go and do a placement. And that happened to be in wearable sensing in 2012, which was just a great time to experience wearable sensing because, things like Nike Fuel and so on were coming out, but it was really primitive, like step counters, activity recognition. But actually getting to work with the sensors and build algorithms kind of just allowed me to see very early on, oh, this could be applied to my strength training. I wasn't at that time qualified in strength conditioning. So what I was actually quantifying was chaotic, but it kind of allowed me to go further and further along the journey, meet my co-founder who's a practitioner, and just continuously iterate and build the product. So honestly, like it was as simple as just wanting to not separate my two passions in my professional career and in my education. And I've been very lucky since that was 2009 not to have to do that every day. I get to combine sport and problem solving. So it's yeah, a journey that I hope continues to go for a long, long time.
Yeah, it beats a real job, doesn't it?
For sure. Like genuinely.
Yeah.
Don't even have a concept of a real job.
My friend Jason Weber has a company called SpeedSig, and he built sort of that tech and that company off of the work that he did throughout doing his PhD. Is that kind of
Awesome.
that also how you came up with output? Of like most of that was what you were actually working on with your co-founder
Yeah, yeah.
PhD?
So I suppose like it absolutely is, and the reason we were able to build output is because of the processes we learned during our PhDs. The one difference is if you have to look at our papers, if you were bored enough at any stage, it all focused on like classification of movement deficits. So particularly in like compound movements like deadlift, squats, lunges. And we built machine learning algorithms with single sensors that like allowed us to classify those movement deficits. But then when we went to build a product and we got our grant for our last 3 years in the university, we interviewed a lot of practitioners and the gaps they were talking about weren't like a perfect match for our research. So then we had enough time in the university to iterate our research and our direction to focus on the measurement spaces that we focus on now, like velocity-based training, jumping, RSI, mobility, and so on. So it's not like it was like one continuous, straightforward journey to a product. It was like building interesting data, learning how to make the most of it with wearables, and then speaking to the market and applying our knowledge and process to get to the ultimate product that's now out. But sorry, it's not the ultimate. It will continue to iterate, but to where we are today with output.
Let's back up a little bit. Why the PhD? Like, why did you even start the PhD to begin with?
Yeah, so what's interesting is like when I had the benefit of working in this wearable sensors company in 2012, like you could see there was a commercial gap. Like there was lots of wearables emerging for endurance training, but like very, very little focus on strength, power, movement, and so on. So I could have tried push like immediately for a startup, and I would have been very young and naive. But I really felt that it would take a lot of time to build research and data sets that would get the most out of a wearable sensor. And felt that a PhD was a great way to actually dive into the challenge deeply and learn from people in other expert fields. So my research group was fantastic. It wasn't just engineers or data scientists, it was medical practitioners, physiotherapists, sports scientists all working together. And I just felt that like that collaboration would allow us to reach a better solution for the problem in the long run. And really, really enjoyed that process. Actually, I've been able to go deep into a problem and technology development for so
Did
many
you
years.
did you have a pretty clear idea then going into the PhD what you wanted to do and what you wanted to be doing in 5 years? It seems like you did.
So I knew enough that like I wanted to make sure I could develop myself to the next phase needed in my career. So for instance, like while I was doing the PhD, I also did education in entrepreneurship and
Yeah.
went to things like the Innovation Academy in UCD to learn that side of things.
Mm.
What I didn't know is what the end product would look like because it was very much a research project. So we didn't know if some of what we measure would need 5 sensors, 4 sensors, etc.
But you were looking into the future and saying this is going to be something that we take to market and build. Not
I
wasn't just
was,
research.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny. Like, I love being a researcher, but it was never like I was a researcher because I felt like that's like what my end goal is. I liked it because it's a way to solve problems, and then I suppose like fundamentally, I would say I was more of an engineer at that point where I wanted to build like a functional solution. So, something that would actually be used in the real world, and I think very often research maybe gets to a paper or some insights that are useful or actionable. But I always wanted to like build something that's actually used or like held in people's hands. So through the whole process, that was definitely in mind and kind of part of how me and my co-founders approached the whole research really.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Well, so what exactly was the problem that you saw or foresaw that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
were trying to solve with maybe not even the work or only the work in your PhD, but what would become Output Sports? Like what was the initial problem? And how
Yeah.
has, if it has, and I don't know if it has or not,
Mhm.
how has that problem changed over the course of the last 5 years? Or
Yeah,
even
so
going back to the start of your PhD in 2013?
no, definitely. So fundamentally, the kind of problem space and the mission has stayed the same, which is to make elite level sports science simple and scalable. But the initial problem we went after to solve, and we still do focus on, was that we felt to get accurate and meaningful athletic data in their off-field characteristics, so in the gym or in physiotherapy, was cumbersome, expensive, and disjointed in terms of different pieces of kit and actually the data very often being siloed and disjointed too. So that was like the first problem we went to solve, and hence developing a single sensor solution, single software cloud, etc. But now, not that that's done, like we're still innovating in that space, but it really becomes about the what you can do with the data. So, it's not just about like can we make measurements simple, it's about can we provide actionable insights efficiently in a way that fits the flows of practitioners. It's, now that we have this privilege that we'd have never got in the university of like capturing 10 million reps a month, are the novel insights we can create that can help athletes and coaches that don't come from smaller scale data sets or studies. So it's not so much that the fundamental focus area has shifted, but we're not just focused on the measurement piece anymore. We're focused on what you actually do with all that data too.
You clearly have some level of expertise in entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
Some, anyway, I don't know how much that is, but it's like it clearly like it's very evident to me that you've been thinking this way for a long time. And you said you took some courses in that, and like where does that come from for you?
yeah, it's a great question. So I think like initially it just came from the ambition of wanting to create something that would be used like out in the real world. And then it was like, well, I don't know how to do that. So let's immerse myself with people that have the experience in doing it. So
Yeah.
honestly, like I'm glad I did it so young. Like at the first year of my PhD, I learned a lot about interdisciplinary collaboration, like leadership styles, listening to the end user, like all of these things that are fundamental to building a company. Um, but then, like, years later, I did another leadership course and I learned about the team side of things and motivation and that kind of thing. So I guess like it was just knowing that lots of people have gone through a similar process and I can learn from their expertise. And while it's never the same for anyone, there's kind of like philosophies and approaches that will help us get there and continue to help us grow into the future. So it's just like a case of like there's all this education around me I could take advantage of in the university, and I really love doing so. And I do have to add, like when I was 22, 23, I was really an engineer. I was really like all in the numbers. So learning about like, post-its and collaboration was like a different
Yeah.
mindset. So while it might seem natural to me now as we discuss it, maybe it doesn't. It certainly wasn't when I was younger, but I'm delighted I was put into research groups and environments where that became really important to me as well.
How hard has it been?
Yeah.
Or how easy has it been? Has it been really easy? Like super easy the last 5 years on
Like,
building a startup?
like it is like constantly challenging, which is obviously very exciting and very fulfilling as you overcome the challenges. Um, and it is very hard. Like there's so many hats you have to wear, and there's so many problems that you anticipate that maybe are harder than you anticipated, and then there's so many you don't anticipate that you have to approach and deal with too. What I would say though is like fundamentally, like it feels like a privilege to work in a space that like we love so much, and is like so core to our passions in terms of our co-founding team. So even though it's challenging. Actually, probably a great example is my co-founder Julian. We used to play handball together, but he went from theoretical physics into working in banking and analytics, and probably shorter working days, probably better salary, probably a lot of things. But he always says there's a lot more satisfaction and fulfillment in what we do now, and I think like that's part of the challenge is like it's in a space we love. So yes, it is very hard and it is all encompassing, but it's not like in an area where hate or that kind of thing. It's somewhere we absolutely love to be working.
What is the what's been the most challenging part of building a business for you?
Um, there's really like pragmatic stuff. Like launching into COVID was like extremely challenging. Like we'd
Good
spent.
timing on that, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I know. We were lucky in a sense in that we had raised finance, and it meant that we could use it in a smart way to focus on the future
Mhm.
and the product. So kind of pragmatically, that was like really tough. Like we'd gone from 7 years of research to leaving the university and launching a product, making our first few hires, and then within 2 weeks we had to kind of say, "Oh, can you bring your laptops home? We're not sure if we're going into lockdown or we're not sure what this is." And then we got through that phase, and that was great. So that's just like a kind of pragmatic answer. An interesting challenge that I would link to sport is like, what we really want to do is create like a high performing team and for us all to achieve things together. And then one of the challenges with a startup is like, imagine a sports team had to double in size every year and you had to keep everyone equally aligned and motivated and playing their part. So um, it's not that I don't enjoy that piece or anything like that, but it's like it's more challenging than I'd anticipated to go through like how easy communication is with like 5 to 10 people to how much more complex it gets now that we're at like close to 40 at this point. Um, and that like that whole challenge of building a team and keeping it impactful is something that requires a lot of focus. Again, it is enjoyable, but it's something I maybe hadn't anticipated earlier in the company journey.
It's a mistake that we made in the growth of our business. You know, we started off really small. We had a team of five,
Mhm.
2015, and then maybe we had a team of six.
Mhm.
And in 2015-16 season, we went from having about 13 or 14 athletes to having over 100 on the ground here and having 34 staff members. And it was just chaos,
Yeah, yeah.
chaos. And it wasn't fun. Like that
No.
was where the challenges just become overwhelming. You know, I mean, it's scale, scaling is, everyone wants to scale and get bigger and, more successful and, and all of these different things. But there's so many challenges that come with that, as you say, right? Like, and some of them are great. Some of them are fun. And some of them
Yeah, yeah.
you have no idea they're coming, but it's some of these challenges are not the challenges that you signed up for. So is there any in what you do now that, oh man, I'm not ready for this, and I go, okay, what do I need to learn now? And is that like when you started this business or started thinking this way in 2013 and then started the business in 2020 and 20,
Mhm.
like you're doing it for a certain reason.
Mhm.
Now you're getting up every day now and every day is typically looking pretty different than it was a year ago and 2 years ago and 3 years ago, 4 years ago and 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But is it still, you're feeling like the motivation is still there? How has that changed over the course of 5 years of doing this? And now you've got a team of 40 people.
Yeah, that's no great question. So I guess firstly, like the motivation kind of gets bigger the further we go. Like big fan of like momentum and creating wins to keep you going and keep you motivated. So we get to do that now at more scale than ever previously possible, and that kind of means that the satisfaction, the energy, everything just like continues to go like on and onwards and upwards, which is great. In terms of like I think you mentioned like are there areas of the job do I feel ready for or not? Like I think I'm a massive believer in like learning by doing and like uh, testing something and iterating, including how you approach all aspects of business growth. Um, so it's you could argue I'm not ready for any of it, but that hopefully my approach like allows us to learn and iterate at the pace required to be a successful and valuable company to end users as well. Because like realistically, my early education was just in engineering, and then I wanted to learn the entrepreneurial side, the sports science side, the biomechanics side, and so on. And it was all about like what do I need next to get us to the next phase. And do have to add that like output's a hugely collaborative effort. So if I didn't have my co-founders and the team around me filling all the gaps that I have, which are ample, it wouldn't work either. So the self-development is just about me doing the thing that I can make the most impact for in the company next, and hopefully helping to build a team that makes us successful too. But like there's no way as a first time founder you can be like experienced in what you need to do next year, if that makes sense.
No, it's
So
it's such an important point, like it's you if you wait until you're ready, you'll be waiting a long, long time. You'll never be ready. You just got to figure out what that is, what I have to do, what is the
yeah,
challenge, and you're jumping off a mountain and building the parachute on the way down every single day when you're building something, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's
100%.
awesome that you're thinking that way. It's yeah, that's great. Um, let's be maybe a little bit more technical. Like, what role should wearable tech play in coaching? One of the critiques that I have now of many younger coaches is they've forgotten how to coach and become a little bit over reliable or over reliant on tech, whether that's wearable tech or otherwise. And I
Yeah.
feel like, the actual role of coaching,
Hmm.
watching, observing,
Yep.
teaching has bypassed many younger coaches. So how do
Hmm.
you navigate kind of that tension between objective measurements, quantifying things, which is incredibly important, obviously, and still coaches being coaches and learning how to coach without reliance on that?
Yeah, really great question. I think uh first of all, like I always think the coach think about what's the purpose of what they're currently doing with the athlete, like what's the outcome they're looking for, or are they just learning about them currently? And then when they do that, apply the tech to that problem to either make their intervention or their solution or their motivation, sorry, the way to motivate the athlete better. So actually maybe starting with that, I think one of the best uses for output and wearable tech is the motivation piece and is the intent piece. So you could be doing a whole training plan or a whole workout, and it might be optimal just to use output for like two things. Like maybe have a really important plyometric exercise and you want to quantify the contact time, give some cueing, and then show that that changes and kind of really reinforce the correct technique. And then maybe use it like on a key lift for power, like a trap bar jump or an Olympic lift, and just use it with purpose to drive the exercise to be completed the way you want it to be completed, to kind of motivate the athlete to move optimally. And then maybe you don't use it at all, like in the rest of the session. You just know that its purpose in that session was for the intent in these two crucial movements for the adaptation you're looking for. The other thing is like in that understanding of the athlete is like, okay, let's say you're working with a golfer and you're trying to work out how can we help their club head speed go up, like using it with purpose. So maybe looking at mobility, strength, power qualities, and then making sure you do something with that data. So once you have that data, what's the best intervention or combination of exercises that can address the areas that I can make the most impact for the athlete. So I think that comes back to the purpose as well. So whether it's the purpose of the intent in the movement or why am I capturing this data? What am I going to do with it? I think fundamentally that has to be almost decided before you use the tech.
Mm.
Uh, with one exception, which is when you're almost like investigating and you
Yeah.
kind of have a hypothesis about an athlete and you're like, okay, if I measure this, it might help me ask a better question, or it might help me find the right thing to measure to really help a very specific thing about this athlete that can't be verbalized by, or can't only be verbalized by conversation and so on. Um, but yeah, sorry, to generalize, I think it's use technology with purpose and act on the data. Like probably one of the worst things you can do is have an ocean of data and the athlete feels like, geez, there's a lot of stuff happening here. And then they don't even know why. They never get told an insight. Nothing really ever appears to change in their training plan. They're not like informed of their progress as it relates to the measurements and so on. And that does happen, you know, where people get all in on capturing the data, but then don't action on it enough.
Mate, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
Much,
it does.
far too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got a very much a coach's outlook on this. Did you do, have you got a lot of experience coaching? Not a lot. And if not, then where did this sort of outlook come from?
No, so great question. So I've never really done too much strength coaching. Like I used to do it for the Irish handball team when I played with them, which involved the athletic testing and the programming and so on. But I actually did do sports coaching. So when I was very young, I coached like our local basketball teams and then did the handball coaching for our university's female team while I was playing on the male team. And so a lot of the things around like motivation, what matters, how can we move the needle, different personality types certainly came from being involved in sports coaching. And then I really love learning from peers. So one of like the absolute privileges of working on output is both initially in the university environment, but now out, you know, across professional sports teams, performance facilities, and so on. I get to meet with this like range of experts, people with different philosophies, different approaches, and just kind of observe and learn from them. So probably a lot of what I'm saying is like some sort of averaged version of all these experts I've had the privilege of speaking with over the years. But that's where a lot of my learnings come from, has been like actually getting out there, getting in the weight room with our end users, speaking to them and kind of seeing what's important. I do like absolutely love when I have got to coach and that kind of thing. But realistically, my kind of career has gone like engineering, research, and then straight into output. So I just try to learn and appreciate all that the coaches do in the output community.
What is it about the Irish that make them such good communicators?
I don't know. I actually like I do hear people say that, and I certainly see it like with Irish practitioners traveling
Yeah,
around
oh,
the world.
absolutely.
I guess like it must come from something fundamentally cultural, like at like a family level or a community level, because it does seem to be like quite ubiquitous around sports practitioners from Ireland.
Mhm.
And then I also think that this is a generalization, but there is always like that kind of qualitative, quantitative approach does seem to come quite naturally to people that I know as well. So, not to only say that's Irish people, but I genuinely don't know the answer, but I certainly do see it, and I guess it must be something very fundamental
Yeah,
from
must be. Must be.
young.
I've always
Yeah,
found that interesting.
yeah.
Um, I guess you know, I certainly stemming from that last question. Often, you know, it's not even down to the coaches. Like, what? Let me zoom out. So, what patterns have you noticed in how tech is used well, and maybe how it's not used as well? And or does it just come down to ensuring that it's trying to answer a question to begin with? Like,
Uh,
answering what is the purpose here? Or do you see it being a little, or are there more reasons or more examples of when it may not be used as well?
I do feel like the biggest kind of issue that I kind of see in sports technology is that kind of like data capture for no reason, and then particularly the impact that has on the athletes. So like when we did our market research, and actually some people that became our investors as athletes, like really spoke about going through these processes and not really knowing why and how frustrating that is, and feeling like an asset and all that kind of thing. So I think um data for the sake of data and then without action is an issue purely from a coach's point of view, but then it's also like massively impactful on the athletes, and then you can really affect their motivation and experience in a team or an organization as well. So that's probably where I see like the biggest kind of combination of where the mistakes can come from. And then I guess like going back to the last answer, where it works really well is that purposeful usage. I really do think intent is a great use of technology that maybe doesn't get spoken about as much.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that one, right? Like when you said it helps to drive the intent and it's a bit of a uses them as a motivator. I haven't really thought about it that way because I mean I haven't worked in team sport at that level and with tech for quite a long time. That's really interesting. Do you feel like that may have changed over the course of time as well as technology's become a bigger piece? And when I started coaching, man, we didn't have any tech, so we had to find ways to motivate athletes that had nothing to do with technology.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting piece to me.
No, and I would say probably the ways that you motivated athletes like in session without technology are probably the same things that work best just enhanced with technology. So one of our like great early end users who's continued to use Output is Ben Rosenblatt, who now has his own 292 performance, but previously with England. And like he talks about like a framework for intent where no competition is the least motivating for the athlete, and then you versus you historically is quite motivating, and then right up to where it's you versus someone else, but as part of a team, and now that's most motivating. But what I
Nice.
think about like old school weight room, they kind of create that, sometimes there's 20 squat racks and the strongest guys are at the top one, and then you can graduate and move back. So, that's doing it without technology. And all we do is hopefully make it that bit more focused, that bit more purposeful from a sports science perspective, where if the aim is a power adaptation or a plyometric adaptation, we can help with the metrics in real time and in a team level, like immediately, which can just really enhance those traditional competitive approaches. And I do think that's a really important thing. Is like when you talk about bringing research from the lab to the field, like my opinion is that it should replicate what's happening in the field as much as possible to enhance the coaching, rather than like try and educate the practitioner to come into the sports science world, which could be slow and cumbersome and that kind of stuff traditionally. So that's quite a big pillar of importance for us as a company as well.
What does the future of sport tech look? And anything about that worrisome to you at all?
Yeah, so this is probably not a very output specific answer. This is more just looking at like sports tech and its impact on society. So like the thing that really excites me is that technology could and should be used to help more and more people like improve their health, their mental health, their fulfillment by reaching personal goals and so on. What actually kind of like concerns me, more so like at a personal level than like it's specific to output, is like there's all this innovation, and right now the people I think that like sports technology are people that already like data, like just in general drawn to data, or they're massively motivated already, like they're like looking to get faster, looking to get stronger. And I think like let's say we're sitting here in 20, 30 years and sports tech's still only benefiting that subset of people who like data and are already motivated. I think like that's like massively missed opportunity for society to like actually help health outcomes and mental health outcomes. Now, do I have the first clue on how to spread it to that wider audience? I don't, but
Is that the
I do
goal? That's the goal. That's the future of output sports is
potentially,
to
yeah,
affect
yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, and it's a like it's extremely challenging, I'd imagine. But I
Mhm.
think it would be kind of a shame to think that like no matter how high tech and advanced this stuff gets, how accessible it gets, if it's still only actually useful to a subset of people because of the way they're naturally inclined, like it kind of misses the bigger impact on society, I guess.
How much of your time then is spent thinking about what that could be? Or is it still just about this specific subset?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think predominantly like we're always like we have the long-term vision in mind, but we're building to get to the next phase and to
Mm.
continue momentum. So I would say there's certain people when I get to spend time with them, you get to have the longer term outlook. So for instance, my PhD supervisor, a guy called Professor Brian Caulfield, is like amazing at the big picture and bringing it back to an actionable plan. So in a couple of weeks, he's coming to Boston and we're thinking long term R&D and we're thinking R&D strategy. And like nowadays it's kind of like we go into that space almost to think about it. Because day to day there's a lot of like get into the next phase or the next game as you'd consider it in sport. Um, in general, I like always thinking about this space and always thinking about technology and data and how we can make the most of it, and then spending time trying to learn from multiple inputs. So like research, practitioner, literally getting into the weight room and watching technology in action, and then just other trends like popular consumer apps in running and that kind of stuff, and how have they grown popularity? Are they breaking that ceiling of just the motivated athlete or not? Just because I love it, like I just find it fascinating, and then hopefully that will all be useful learnings in the future.
Hopefully it will be, but it'll be almost certainly useful in ways that you cannot predict right now because we know the nature of progression is nonlinear. That's
Absolutely.
that's always the hardest thing about running a business, right? You can have all these long-term plans and talk about them, but the only guarantee is whatever you're planning today is not gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's proven to be true time and time again.
Sure.
So that's why I think it does serve an importance to have that long-term thinking and that long-term vision, because then it can appear more linear if you average it out over time. But you're absolutely right. Like the plan always changes, and you're constantly looking at the signals to what you should do next. And constantly trying to make the most of the resource you have to achieve what you want to achieve. So it's a very interesting challenge, and it certainly is never linear and never looks exactly as you anticipated a year or two previously as well.
But and how boring would it be if it did?
Yeah, yeah, who knows? Who
You know,
knows?
like this is I think what excites not just people who are good at what they do, but the people who are, like yourself, an entrepreneur. Like that's what interests you, I'm assuming, right? It's not if you were doing the same thing in 5 years as you are today, that's not interesting.
Definitely, and I think that is part of why I've loved this journey so much. Like I actually really enjoyed being a researcher, that really specific piece of the R&D and technology. But like nowadays, it's just like you feel like you get to learn so much and adapt and grow, and like you you also get to see some outcomes that really reinforce your motivation. Like the quantitative one for me is always how much usage of the product is there. Like, we're capturing 10 million reps a month now. That's crazy to think that we were three guys in a lab 6 years ago. And then the other side is like completely on the opposite end is like when our end users like refer us to their friends or like recommend us, like that's extremely satisfying because it's like not us saying this technology is good, you should use it. It's like people that are out there in the space who can be working for the best baseball teams in the world or the coolest training facilities, and linking it into their peers, and that's like another thing that's immensely satisfying as you go through all these like dips and ups and downs. Like those things like give you massive fulfillment and motivation as well.
Absolutely. You've got 40 something staff now?
Just coming up to 40 in the next few months, yeah. So a couple of open roles now, actually predominantly focusing on that what we do with the data side that I mentioned earlier. And then expanding here in the US, and kind of focusing on getting the word out about output as well. So yeah, coming up to 40, currently 34.
So when it comes to hiring, your 35th and 36,
Yeah.
what are you looking for from those people?
Yeah, great question. And like obviously fundamentally like things like the right expertise and that kind of thing. But what we've really found has been like great for our team has been like people that are like natural learners, really motivated, willing to ask questions, and then they have like a proven track record of doing. Like so, one thing I'm always drawn to is like if someone's done like a very interesting project out of their own interest, just to dive into it and see what skills they need to learn to solve it, etc. That's always a great sign. And if they're collaborative, that's really important to us. Like for us, like even though 40 people sounds like a lot, like it's still very small and you need everyone to like collaborate, learn from each other and try and do something novel together. So there are things that like really stand out to us. It's like proactive and doers, and then also naturally collaborative confident and in their own knowledge, but respectful of the other disciplines that are in the company, and knowing that we're trying to make the most of all this expertise we have.
I remember, I think I was 13 or 14. I was applying for a job with, I think it was Greyhound. It was a bus line in
Oh
Calgary,
yeah,
Canada.
yeah, yeah,
And they asked me, why should we hire you? I'm a kid, right? I don't know
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
I don't know why you should hire me. But I heard that the thing to say was, I'm a people person.
Oh yeah,
I said, I'm a people person. I said, to this day, I don't know what a people person means. They asked
yeah.
me, what do you mean I'm a people person? I said, I don't know. I like people. But I always kind of reflect back on that, and then I think about, what it is that, we've hired quite a few people now, and other people, and, a lot of my colleagues and friends have hired people. And, when I ask them, what are you looking for? And what are your best staff members? It is always that. It actually does come down to that. If you'd actually define what it is, what you mean by a people person, you're basically talking about many of the things that you kind of outlined in your answer there.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like you've kind of flagged a lot in this conversation that there's constant unexpected challenges, and there's constant things are harder than you expect, and so on. So you need to have people that are like part of that and happy to like get involved and really help solution, and like it is actually such a privilege, like the team we have around us. We've got people this year that have now worked with us 5 years, and it's like it's amazing to think like they performed well in the interview way back when, but now they're just so key to how we develop and how we grow, and have teams around them and so on. So um you do just try to think what are those characteristics that made those people so great for us from day one, and try to find it again, I guess.
Yeah, that's the key. That's easier said than done. But I wish you all the best in that in the future,
Oh,
and
thanks.
and with your growth. I look forward to seeing what the next 5 years look like for you guys.
Yeah, thanks a million. No, absolutely. And it's a hell of a journey. So I look forward to it too.
So I appreciate your time. Are we going to see you in Chicago? Will you be there?
Yes, I will. I'll be there for the first 2 days, and then I have to get back to Boston.
Great. Well, we'll see you there
Can't
in
wait.
about 3 weeks. I really enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Martin O'Reilly. Super sharp guy. I don't know if I've ever had a conversation with an Irishman that I haven't enjoyed. I'll be honest. Um, he offered some pretty rare insight into the intersection of academic research, entrepreneurial execution, and performance technology. And it seems like for me, like he's really into all three of those things, and just doing a great job of building this company. Martin and his team at Output Sports have taken a thoughtful approach, prioritizing simplicity without sacrificing scientific integrity. And their work is now integrated across elite systems in, I think, over 40 countries. Thank you once again to our sponsors, 3x4 Genetics, Stat Sports, 1080 Sprint, Team Builder, and of course, Output Sports for supporting both the ALTIS Speed Summit and this podcast. For more information about the summit, including how to attend, important, head to altis.world. Thank you for listening.